My name is Daniel Dockin. Welcome to Module 0, Unit 3. Welcome. The purpose of Unit 3 is to give you an understanding of the background, ecology and impacts of Japanese knotweed. We'll look at where it came from, how it was introduced to the UK, and how it has become so established here. We'll explore how it grows, how it reproduces, and the habitats where it thrives. We'll also examine the environmental and economic and social impacts it causes, giving you a clear picture of why this plant is such a significant invasive plant. We will touch briefly on what it looks like so you can visualize the plant, but full identification details will come later in Unit 4. Japanese knotweed, or Rhinotria japonica, is a member of the buckwheat family. It is native to Japan, China, and Korea, where it thrives in habitats such as volcanic slopes, riverbanks, and other areas of disturbed ground. In its native range, it is part of a balanced ecosystem and is naturally controlled by several factors. These include the specialist insect Alphalaria itadori, which feeds specifically on knotweed. There are various leaf spot fungi and other plant diseases, and actually is just outcompeted by native plants. Together, these factors prevent knotweed from becoming invasive in its home environment. In appearance, Japanese knotweed is a tall, fast-growing perennial with hollow, bamboo-like stems or canes, and large shield-shaped leaves. In the late summer, it produces clusters of small, creamy white flowers. While it can produce seeds, these are not viable in the UK unless cross-pollinated with other closely related species. We'll cover this in more detail in Unit 4. Here, in the UK, it spreads almost entirely through rhizome propagules, with even the smallest fragment capable of producing a new plant if conditions are suitable. Japanese knotweed was brought to the UK in the 1850s by Philip Franz von Siebold, a German physician and botanist based in the Netherlands. Siebold was one of the most influential plant collectors of his time, introducing a wide range of East Asian species to Europe, including hydrangeas or wisterias. It is important to understand that while Siebold shared many non-native plants, very few of them have become invasive in the UK. Japanese knotweed is one of those rare examples, which links back to Unit 1, where we discussed that Plant Atlas 2020 findings have found that over half of UK's flora is non-native, but only a small proportion have become invasive. Japanese knotweed gained fame in Europe when it won a gold medal at the 1857 Utrecht Flower Show. It was later exhibited at the Crystal Palace in London, where its fast growth and ornamental qualities caught the public's attention. It was widely sold as a garden ornamental plant, but its ability to regenerate from the smallest rhizome fragments meant it quickly escaped cultivation. The first confirmed wild record in the UK was in Masteg, South Wales, in 1886, and from there it spread along rivers, railways and disturbed land, often using human activity as its transport network. Japanese knotweed has a distinct and predictable seasonal growth cycle. In early spring, typically between March and April, reddish purple shoots emerge from the ground. Although this may vary depending on your region, as often knotweed in the north or in Scotland will typically emerge a little bit later compared to knotweed in the southeast. Growth is extremely rapid, often up to 10 centimeters per day, and by midsummer the plant reaches full height, but usually between 2 and 3 meters tall, and that's provided there hasn't been any type of disturbance. In late summer, Japanese knotweed produces small clusters of creamy white flowers. Although it can produce seeds, in the UK these are almost non-viable unless cross-pollinated with a closely related species such as giant knotweed. As a result, most spread here through vegetative means, which we'll cover in the next slide. The rhizome system is the key to Japanese knotweed persistence in the UK. Underground, it forms an extensive network spread that on average spreads 3 meters horizontally and 2 meters in depth. This is of course subject to the size of the infestation, and we wouldn't expect a small single stem growth to be this size, but equally mature infestations can grow bigger than this. You may have heard in the past about Japanese knotweed growing 7 meters horizontally and 3 meters deep. This was an old guidance provided by the Environment Agency, but thanks to research conducted by Mark Fennell, Max Wade, Karen Bacon and PCA members into the capacity and potential structural damage and typical rhizome extension, we now know this is no longer true. Shoots emerge from nodes along the rhizomes, and even the smallest fragment, as little as 0.7 grams or a fingernail, can grow into a new plant if conditions are right. These rhizomes act as an energy store, allowing the plant to regrow rapidly after cutting or other type of disturbance. Because knotweed spread in the UK happens through rhizome propagules, this underground network is the real target for long-term control. Knotweed stands can survive for decades, resprouting year after year unless the rhizomes are completely destroyed through effective treatment or removal. Japanese knotweed is highly adaptable and thrives in disturbed ground, particularly where soils are nutrient rich. This is why it has spread so successfully in the UK, where human activity creates many of these ideal conditions. One of the most common places to find it is along riverbanks and floodplains. Flood events happen, and they break off bits of rhizomes or propagules and carry them downstream, establishing new colonies many kilometres away from the original infestation. This makes river systems both habitat and key spread pathway. Railway embankments and verges are another hotspot. The loose, well-drained soils created during construction are perfect for knotweed growth, and rail transport can move contaminated soil or plant fragments over long distances. Roadsides present a similar opportunity, with roadside maintenance work often disturbing soils and allowing propagules to establish. Knotweed also thrives on brownfield and derelict sites, where bare ground and low competition from other plants give it a competitive edge. In urban environments, it can establish in gardens and landscaped areas, sometimes introduced accidentally through contaminated topsoil. Ecologically, the plant is tolerant of a wide range of soil types and pH levels, and it can grow in both full sun and partial shade. This flexibility allows it to colonize environments from open riversides to shaded woodland edges. In the UK, its spread often follows transport corridors, rivers, roads and railways, acting like invasion highways that help to move it into both rural and urban settings. This ability to exploit human-made pathways is a key reason why Japanese knotweed has become such a widespread problem. Japanese knotweed's impact on the environment begins with its ability to outcompete native plants. Its rapid growth, dense canopy of shield-shaped leaves, and early spring emergence gives it a competitive head start. This shades out and physically suppresses other plants, reducing overall plant diversity wherever it becomes established. This reduction in plant diversity has a knock-on effect for wildlife. Fewer plant species means fewer food sources for insects, birds, and mammals. Also, the dense stands of knotweed do not provide the same quality of shelter or nesting habitat as other native vegetation. Over time, infested sites become less suitable for a wide range of species. On riverbanks, the impacts are more complex. During the growing season, knotweed can help bind soil with its dense stems and roots, but in the winter, the above-ground growth dies back completely. This leaves bare soil exposed to erosion from rain and floodwaters, which can destabilize banks and affect the water quality downstream. On top of this, research has shown that knotweed can also use allelopathy, which means releasing chemicals into the soil that suppresses germination and growth of other plants. This gives it yet another competitive advantage and helps explain why it forms such dense monocultures. Finally, Japanese knotweed is highly resilient. It can grow after flooding, fire, or soil disturbance, making it a persistent threat to habitats once it has been established. For economic impacts of Japanese knotweed, the 2023 CABI study estimated that the UK spends around 4 billion every year dealing with invasive non-native species, which is plants, animals, fungi, and others. Plants are only part of the total, but their share is still significant. When we focus specifically on invasive non-native plants, Japanese knotweed alone is estimated to cost the UK over 246 million each year. Other costly plants include rhododendron at 6.2 million per year, giant hogweed at 1.4 million, and buddleia also at 1.4 million. These costs include direct management and control work, repairing damaged infrastructure, complying with environmental and waste legislation, and delays to development projects where infestations must be treated before construction can begin. Japanese knotweed carries a strong social impact, influenced as much by perception as the plant's actual biology. Public concern is widespread, driven in part by negative media coverage. Over the years, knotweed has developed a kind of taboo status in the property market. The mere mention of it can put people on edge. This is often amplified by misinformation, which can exaggerate its effect or create confusion about what the law actually requires. Neighbour disputes are a frequent social consequence, particularly when knotweed crosses boundaries or is suspected of doing so. Questions over responsibility, costs, and control methods can strain relationships and in some cases lead to legal action. The Law Society's TA6 form plays a role here, as sellers are legally required to declare whether knotweed is present. This alone can trigger disputes if a buyer believes the declaration was inaccurate or incomplete. For property owners, the presence of knotweed can create genuine stress and anxiety, especially if it impacts the property sale, the value, or leads to disputes. These social impacts mean that knotweed management is not just about technical control, it's also about clear communication, managing expectations, and addressing the fears and misunderstandings that surround the plant. In this unit, we looked at Japanese knotweed in a little bit more depth. We learnt that it is native to East Asia and was introduced to the UK in the 1850s by the botanist Philip Franz von Siebold. We saw how it thrives in disturbed ground from riverbanks to brownfield sites, and how its main method of spread in the UK is through rhizome propagules. We also explored the wide-ranging impacts it can have. Environmentally, it contributes to biodiversity loss and alters habitats. Economically, it causes infrastructure damage and complicates property transactions. Socially, it is associated with stigma and is often the subject of misinformation. Finally, we discussed that legal obligations such as disclosure under the Law Society's TA6 form and compliance with professional standards are a key part of the knotweed picture. Together, these factors explain why Japanese knotweed remains one of the most problematic invasive plants and why careful management is so important.